Hi again, Greg Bell, Dave Boling inside the Georgia Dome late on Saturday night. The Seahawks have already flown home because their season's over. 36-20. They lost to the Falcons in a game that really wasn't that close in the last 2.5 quarters. The decisive play, I mean, of all the things we talked about, Dave, all week, stopping Matt Ryan, got to establish the run, pass rush, how's Russell Wilson going to be in the playoffs? It was a backup linebacker with a holding call during a punt that entirely changed the Seahawks, not only game, but season.
And I thought it might be the kicking game would be an issue. And I thought it might be maybe Hauschka with some of the inconsistencies that he had. I just wouldn't think it would be Kevin Pierre-Louis holding at the line of scrimmage to bring back Devin Hester's beautiful coverage.
Devin Hester went from his own 13 to the Atlanta 7-yard line right here, with the Seahawks already leading 10-7 in the second quarter. What happened on the play was LaRon Reynolds, a backup linebacker for the Falcons, jammed really hard just past the line of scrimmage. Jammed Kevin Pierre-Louis. Thank you. It's been a long season. Kevin Pierre-Louis took exception to that and grabbed Reynolds by both shoulder pads and basically wrestle-tossed him to the ground like a WWF play. It was in between the hash marks in the center of the field, daring the officials to throw a flag. It was in front of everyone.
Had nothing to do with the return.
And it had nothing to do with the ball. Had just taken flight. It wasn't a play for the return. It was so insignificant to the actual play. Yet what happened was, instead of the Seahawks having the ball at the Atlanta 7 up 10-7 with a chance to go up 17-7 in the second quarter and stun this crowd and take them out of the game and put Matt Ryan in catch-up mode, the Seahawks started at their own 7, an 86-yard penalty, unheard of. Pete Carroll after the game said that was the turning point. That's where the game hinged. And they went from 10-7 to 10-9 on the next play because Reese Odiamba, who was only in the game because Jermaine Ifedi got a high ankle sprain in the first half, stepped on Russell Wilson's foot, dropping to pass protect on a pass play call from the 7 after that penalty. So it went 10-9, then it went 12-9, then it went 19-10, 12-10, then it went 19-10, and before the third quarter was even 3 minutes over, it was 26-10 Atlanta, game over. Dave, what we saw and talked about all season long caught up to them again today, didn't it?
In a big sense, particularly, this has been a good team. It's a really good team. Last year was a really good team. It's not a great team. It's not a Super Bowl championship caliber team. And as we wrote about this week leading into this game, it felt like a watershed moment. It feels like they're at a fork in the road. There's some of the things that they've been doing haven't worked. The way they approach building the offense and developing the offensive line hasn't worked. Those guys improved, but it was a weak link all season long. I don't think this team plays with the same competitive ferocity that its predecessors. A lot of the guys do. They're great individuals and real competitors' hearts. The whole team doesn't get worked up every week, and it's probably human nature. Once you've been to the mountain, it's hard on a weekly basis. If they'd have merely beaten the Los Angeles Rams in the second week the way they should have, if they had taken care of business against the teams that they should have beaten, instead of playing down to them, this game would have been played in Seattle, and the outcome might have been very different. And I think that's part of their general philosophy that needs to be improved.
You mean scoreboard of 3 points at Los Angeles on September the 18th?
Probably
to a 4-12 team, or 5 points in Tampa Bay, or losing on Christmas Eve after rallying to tie Arizona at home. All those reasons are why, all those games are why we played this game today here. A couple things after the game. First of all, Michael Bennett exploded on a Seattle television reporter. It's online. I talked about it there. But to be sure, these are players who sacrificed themselves, testosterone-filled, unbelievable emotion. This isn't baseball. These players are playing, and the season just ended, and after every season that hasn't ended in a Seattle Super Bowl victory, this happens. Now we're in the age of cameras and Twitter and blogs, and so it became a bigger issue that Michael Bennett exploded. But he did it last year in Carolina in a smaller scale. It's happened before. It's understandable. It's not
of a greater concern is that when it happens on the field,
Correct.
during the game.
Nobody cares if the reporters get yelled at. I understand that.
It really, I think there have been times when we say they've lost their composure. Oh yeah, being upset. Yeah, being ready to fight. Being wired up with the adrenaline. And really, what does Pete call it? We're amped, you know, that's great. That's what led this team to be as good as they are. But when you lose the cool, and as Kam Chancellor talked about afterward, when we're using all that energy on each other, we're not using it on the opposing team. And I think it's a huge point they need to make in this offseason. We can be very competitive and maybe have a little more class in the process.
Of Chancellor, I caught him on the way out of the locker room. He turns 29 in April, third season in a row he didn't finish because of injuries. I asked him what he thought his future was. He's got 1 year left and a more than $8 million cap number in 2017. He said, I ain't thinking about that. I said, do you think you'll be back? He said, day to day, man, day to day. And he walked out the locker room and went onto the bus.
On the other hand, Devin Hester, who had such a spectacular game today, even with the punt return called back, said, you know, I kind of told my wife this would be the end. And so he certainly won some Seahawks fans' hearts with his performance today, but it doesn't look like he's going to be back. In reality, Tyler Lockett should be returned to health next year, which would make him redundant.
Lockett is supposed to be back from his broken leg in time for training camp, Pete Carroll has said. Deshaun Shedd has what looked to be a very serious knee injury, maybe a torn ACL. He was on crutches in the locker room after the game. Players were coming up to him expressing sorrow and patting him on the back, hang in there, knowing that it looks like a long road ahead of recovery for him. He may not be ready for the start of next season, at least not training camp. All in all, this kind of ended up as we feared it would if you're a Seahawks fan. Couldn't stop Matt Ryan in the passing game, couldn't get the running game going. Thomas Rawls had 34 yards on just 11 carries, and they go out in round 2 for the second consecutive season.
You know, we've been down on them for a lot of reasons, and I don't think this team came anywhere close to matching its potential. 5 straight seasons of getting to the divisional round, having double-digit wins. You know, this was my 24th consecutive playoff game to cover for the Seahawks, and it took 11 years to get the first one. So I really have a sense of the perspective of where they are now relative to where they've been. And so it was really a good season. It's been a good run. I have to think Pete Carroll and the team expects more of themselves than this, and I think that's where they're going to set about working on the offseason to correct it.
Pete Carroll said the window's still open. We're in the middle of it, he said. This isn't the end. And just remember in your angst tonight, Seahawks fans, that you're not a Cleveland Browns fan.
And thanks for watching. We've had good response from viewers on this, on our late night visits here. So thank you very much.
And we even got Dave to smile. So thanks a lot for joining us. We'll be covering the Seahawks return home tomorrow on the newstribune.com. Pete Carroll next to speak to the media scheduled to be on Monday. Thanks a lot.